We see great challenges from a regional perspective because we now have McGowan Government spending more on one single metropolitan project, that being Metronet, than they are on their entire regional development program in Western Australia. The top line figure for Royalties for Regions is absolutely $4.2 billion, but the devil is always in the detail. And if you go back, this is what the government has been doing since they've come to power. They've been shifting essential government services to be paid for by Royalties for Regions. So you dilute the effectiveness and the reach of the regional development program. We've got nearly $1.1 billion of a $4.2 billion program going directly to the Water Corporation. We've seen things like the orange school buses paid for, the regional education assistance, the TAFE fees. These are all really important things. We're not arguing that, but they should be coming from the transport budget or the education budget, not from Royalties for Regions. And it's probably even more insidious than that, because if they shift it to Royalties for Regions, it means they free up space in their own budgets, which means they can then spend more in the metropolitan area on their key election promises. So the budget to us absolutely demonstrates that this government has its focus on metropolitan Perth, and we see that by the dilution and almost death of Royalties for Regions. Absolutely, we travel the width and breadth of the state, and people are talking to us about a lack of health services. So we've recently been in the Murchison talking about the Meekatharra Hospital. We were very pleased to see that there was $5 million in the budget for the Carnarvon Aged Care Project, but don't forget, they cut that in their first budget. So a lot of the programs we're seeing funded at the moment are as a result of the cuts that they made when they first came to government, and they're replacing the funding. There's not a great deal new. Education and health are always going to be the deal breakers for regional communities. We would very much have liked to have seen some support and increase to the PATS scheme. We would very much have liked to have seen increases to support for our ambulance volunteer drivers. We know that they are under pressure, so whether it be through paid paramedics or other sources, we don't see any of that. There's a whole list of other things that we will further develop as we go through the budget over the next couple of weeks. But they're the things that we think need to be focused on rather than an extra few kilometres of Metronet. Don't forget that when we were in government, we were going through a population boom where we had the entire population of Tasmania basically moving to Western Australia. That was putting enormous pressure on our services and infrastructure. We made sure that we had teachers, nurses, police all paid, and they were competing with the mining sector at that point in time. We also had a broken GST system. So there were very different financial circumstances when we were in government to what this government is now facing. I said before, this surplus has been delivered by the death of Royalties for Regions, the GST, which has been fixed by the federal Liberal National Government, and some very pleasant surprises in terms of the iron ore price at the moment. That means that the books look better, but you look at it in depth and you see that most of that funding is going to Metronet and metropolitan projects.